Welcome to Sacred Cow Barbecue. It's Thursday, January 28th. I'm Patricia Aiken, an average host with exceptional guests. Of course, tonight my guests and I will focus on the murderous ambush in Grant County, Oregon, the desperate psychopaths that run this criminal cabal that call themselves the government have gone too far. Tonight, Carol Bundy will be joining us during the second half. Also, Gavin for Freedom, who's been saying all the right things about the stand in Oregon. But right now, it's my pleasure to welcome Nevada Assemblywoman and Nevada congressional candidate Michelle Fiore. She was front and center criticizing the naked government terrorism against the Bundy Ranch and also sponsored Ammon Bundy's Land and Resource Bill, the most popular bill in the history of the Nevada legislature. Michelle, welcome to Sacred Cow Barbecue.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much for having me. The F.B.I. released the footage of the shootout of LaVoy, Finicum, and it was a camera from the air.
Yeah, shootout, ridiculous. They didn't fire one shot, right?
No. So there wasn't any shots fired from inside the vehicle at all. The problem with the footage that the FBI has released is it's the footage from the air. It's not the cameras in the trucks. So we still actually need the real footage because we don't really see everything.
Oh,
There's trees in the way.
I don't think.
But we do see. I'm going to tell you what we do see on the footage, and I'm really glad that the FBI has released it because we do see LaVoy Finicum exiting his truck with his hands up, and as he's walking through the really thick snowbank with his hands up, he is getting shot from the front and the back. So every time, from what I observed and from what I saw through the video footage, is LaVoy Finicum's hands were up as he got shot. And I want you to imagine your hands are up and all of a sudden someone shoots you. What is your response if you get shot in the stomach chest? Where would your hands go?
Oh, right to the wound.
Right to the wound. Here's this man. What I see is his hands are up. He's getting shot. He's trying to put his hand on the moon, and he's trying to put his hands back up in the air as to say, like, stop shooting, my hands are up. He doesn't get a chance to do that. As he's trying to protect his body from the shots, he gets turned totally around and shot from the back, and it puts him down. And as he's on the ground, you see his arm in the snowbank from the air. You see his arm down and up, and you see it when he's on the ground getting shot again. And then while he's laying in the snowbank with the helicopter taking footage, you see the lasers right on his head. So like on my rifle, there's red dot laser, there's a lot of dot lasers. So you see lasers right on him. So who knows how many more times he was shot. The lasers were right on his head. And so I guess we'll have to wait for the coroner's report to actually find out, how many bullets.
Yeah, I hope they'll have the Finicums. Carol's going to give me a report about that later, Carol Bundy, and tell us that if they're going to have an independent autopsy done after they receive the body back. But the report is that he was shot in the face as well, and that's probably what we see with the lasers. And Victoria Sharp, who was in the car in the middle in the back seat, I believe she reported 6 shots.
Yeah, I think there was a lot more than that, unfortunately. And understand, while all of this is going on, it's sad because through this whole occupation, as they'll call it, I will tell you that the cowboys, because I call them, cowboys camping in the middle of nowhere in the snow. I mean, there was no standoff. None of these cowboys, none of these patriots ever pointed a gun at anyone, ever, there was no standoff. This was all media hype. There were cowboys camping at a refuge in the middle of nowhere, 40 miles from anywhere, in the middle of snow. So they had campfires and it was quite cold. They were going back and forth from the city. They were going to church. They were going shopping. So they were, communicating with the community. They were doing meetings daily, educating the ranchers and having community meetings. And they were on their way to a community meeting with over 100 people waiting for them. And and that's why the young girl, Victoria Sharp, was in that car, because she was, I believe, going to be opening up the meeting singing, because she's a singer.
Right. Exactly. She was up there doing some, praise and worship type music for them. You can see that on some of the videos. But Michelle, I want you to just say a few things about Ammon Bundy and the legislation that you supported this year, and the way that got totally gutted and what have you. It was shocking to me that the most supported bill in Nevada history was so torn up, just completely erased and replaced with couple sentences that was so offensive.
So what's really shocking? So legislators like myself, so I am an elected official for the state of Nevada, and I write law for the state of Nevada. But what we have is our Legal Counsel Bureau, and it's short LCB. And what they do is we give them what our goal is, what goal we want to accomplish, and they write it up and they make sure that it's constitutional, and they do all of this. However, as constitutional as we wrote this bill, our Legal Counsel Bureau, because whatever they chose to say, in their opinion, which again, it is their opinion. I am the lawmaker, not them. In their opinion, it's not constitutional. So they had to give all of the other elected officials a letter saying this bill is not constitutional. So then all of the other elected officials were like, well, geez, our staff said we shouldn't do this. Well, their staff is not the one who represents the people, nor is elected to fight for the people. So that bill should have never gotten an unconstitutional opinion from our Legal Counsel Bureau to scare the other legislators not to vote for it. And I kind of scold my peers for allowing their staff to bully them into not voting for it, because all of the great things we did, like ESA accounts, which is the educational savings accounts, guess what happened now? So constitutional. Well, now there's a judge that said, no, sorry, we're not going forth. It's unconstitutional. So again, the staff, their legal opinion, constitutional, not constitutional, I think that the way it played out was that unconstitutional opinion basically was a crock, because there is many of the legislation that has happened in the 78th session that now is going to court. Totally, lobbyists, other companies are literally taking this past session, and they're taking all of the legislation that we've written, and they're taking it to task and taking it to court. But our AB 408, which basically gives the lands back to the people, because right now we have a big problem in the state of Nevada. The federal government has occupied 89% of our land in Nevada, as well as taken away water rights, which is a big, big problem. And then we have legislators with no guts. You know what? So what if someone wants to challenge us and say that this isn't constitutional? Let's take it to court, and let's go that extra step. So I will tell you, AB 408 was the most popular bill this session, had the most support in the history of Nevada, and our elected peers were afraid of it.
Yeah, well, the Legal Counsel Bureau, I understand that they put a lot of pressure on the elected officials. They can threaten you with FBI investigations, IRS, all those kinds of things.
Well, I've lived it. I was in session. Yeah, I'm in session fighting against the tax, the $1.4 billion tax bill, SB 483. Fighting against it. And guess what happens? In my private company in Las Vegas, as I'm in the chamber on the floor fighting against the governor's bill, their inspectors are in my office trying to do an unannounced audit. My mom's babysitting the office. She calls me and she's like, hey, Michelle, these people are in the office. I told her, throw them out.
Oh, yeah. There was a total smear campaign about you that kept you from being speaker this year, and it all started before the session started in the caucus or whatever that is that you run before the session starts. So when you met you were one of the few politicians. I know there are a couple more, but you got on camera as a woman, and we're both kind of intense, and you got some really good media time defending the Bundys, and I love the way you handled the media.
Well, thank you. I just think that we need, when you speak the truth, it's really hard to screw that up. So when there's a camera in my face and I am standing up for the people, and you're doing something right, it's not difficult to stand with the people and for the people.
So you're you know Ammon well, you know the Bundys well.
Yes.
Tell people about their character, just so they can share this with people. I can't tell people how much I admire and respect and love him. And Ryan.
Okay, so, I have to just tell you, it's so funny, because now I have been a Nevadan. This is my 24th year here in the state of Nevada. But I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And, Brooklyn, some of the foul language is equivalent to the word the. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean,
I'm from Boston. I kind of get that.
Okay, so I'm on the phone with Ammon a few days ago, and my assistant's in the car. And we're in the car, so it goes through the car. So he's on like the speaker cars or however the Bluetooth thing works, because you have to drive hands-free. So, and we're talking about Sheriff David Ward and Judge Steve Grasty. These are two individuals that are really bad for Oregon people.
Right.
So, and I say that sheriff, and I say some Brooklyn words, right? And then Ammon's response to me is, yes, he can be a jerk. And my assistant was so, she just couldn't believe, the worst thing Ammon could say about someone trying to kill him was the jerk word. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. Carol Bundy, in hours that I've spent in her living room and in front yard, over this chaos, all kinds of jerks. I mean, COINTELPRO, and then just people with big egos and crazy people. I mean, it's just not. And the worst thing I've ever heard her say about anyone was, well, it takes all kinds.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, I really think that they have a lot of class, and they fight for the people. And it's really sad that Americans have been beaten down so much that they're afraid to stand up, because look what happens when you stand up. I closed my company. Ammon's in jail. Ryan's in jail. LaVoy is dead.
Yeah,
okay.
14 children on the Bundy side are without fathers right now in their home, and have been for a month because they've made this sacrifice. LaVoy Finicum's 11 children are now fatherless. They stole. I mean, they came and kidnapped the children that they were therapeutic foster parents for. I thought they'd go with that, but LaVoy Finicum was such a major threat to these people because he's so well spoken, so normal, so passionate, but yet kind and gentle. I mean, that message resonates with people. He is people are like moths to a flame with him.
Right, but a lot of folks don't understand is why LaVoy was such a threat is because he just went through this in Arizona. And our organization, COWS, which is the Coalition of Western States, we have a vast interest in our Western states to get our lands back. And there's 12 states, and Oregon is one of them, Arizona is one of them, Nevada is one of them. And LaVoy just went through a huge battle and won in Arizona. So, of course, they're nervous about him. And then we just, there's so much wrong with our federal government taking our resources. Because understand, they're taking the land, which is a direct resource for people and the states.
And let's just clear this up once and for all, because the enabling acts, the enabling clause in the constitutions all say that the federal government once the state becomes a state, stops being a territory and becomes a state, that land, any land that the federal government wants, needs to be purchased from the state.
Correct. And so,
and they've never
that's
just inch one.
Okay, so So our U.S. Constitution should definitely trump every state constitution. What Nevada is always holding their leftist opinion on is, well, when the 23 hayseeds that originally wrote the Nevada state constitution, they were so desperate to become a state because they wanted to mine and the gold that they just gave our state away to Washington to make sure we can become a state, because these were 23 Californians that, basically wanted to mine, businessmen. And what they don't understand is the U.S. Constitution trumps that, and we still have to purchase the land. And as Nevada is 150 years old, and we still have no record of the federal government purchasing our land.
Right, and they still want to control it. So the thugs in the BLM, the fact that they withheld so much Brady in the Hammond case, where they had 2 witnesses that saw BLM setting these fires in a horseshoe shape around the Hammond Ranch, and just the utter and complete corruption in this is just mind-blowing. And yet, the internet is hosed up with all these trolls that are just saying that, just like with the Bundy Ranch thing, saying terrible things about Clive Bundy that are just so not true. If anybody knew the facts, it would surely wake them up.
Right. Well, what's really sad, I find, is that I'm a warrior for the people. It doesn't even matter, some of the people that are trolls, as you call them. If they're in trouble, I'm still going to stand and fight for them, and especially if our government is acting lawless, as our government has been acting lawless, and the BLM has become nothing more than a bureaucracy of terrorism. So when you look at what's been taking place, and you look at the leftist individuals that are attacking the Bundys and attacking, I have to tell you, as this video comes out with LaVoy's hands up, trust me, the leftists will say, no, he was firing a gun. I mean, I can see it. I could just hear him. So no matter what you do, no matter what truth and you show or prove, haters will be haters. And the only thing we can do is pray for them.
Yeah. I have to agree with you there, and keep putting the truth out.
Because if you think about it, I want you to think about this, because I am very passionate about our Second Amendment, right?
Right.
So
love your calendar, by the way.
So you think about it. I want you to imagine, our Second Amendment folks, we basically have firearms and ammunition and, we have lots of firepower, right? If we were so evil, do you think the leftists would have a voice? Because, hey, we've got the guns and ammo, right? We're so evil. I mean, you think about that.
Well, when I go to a gun show, I feel safest. I saw somebody drop their wallet and somebody came by and picked it up and handed it to them, at a gun show. I mean, an armed, what do they say? An armed society is a polite society.
It's very true. Very, very true.
Let's talk for a couple minutes. I know I need to let you go soon, but I want to talk about campus carry for a minute.
Okay.
Why do they? Why won't they go for that? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it's just, I think yesterday or the day before, UNR had another assault with a bad guy with a gun on UNR, but of course, we can't have law-abiding citizens that have their concealed weapons permit and get background checks can't have a gun, but a bad guy assaulted someone with a gun on UNR's campus a day or two ago and attacked them, assaulted them, and that's okay. So campus carry was killed this session by Republicans. Our majority leader, Senator Michael Roberson, wouldn't even allow campus carry to be heard in the Senate. So So Campus Carey was killed by the Republican, and then Senator Roberson stole 3 assembly bills and turned them into one bill and called it his Gun One bill. And so then we were going to attach Campus Carey onto that bill because, you know, he does things for political reasons, not for the people. And what happens? He convinces the not-so-great 8 assembly members to please, you know, vote down the amendment on the gun bill, otherwise their bills aren't going to pass. So he basically threatened the folks not to get the Campus Carey on another gun bill that was going to the Senate, and they went for it. So, again, we basically need to start really vetting the people that run for office and the candidates, and if they're not going to stick to their word and they do get elected, get them out of office in the next session.
Well, I almost think it's even too late for that, Michelle. I'm one of those people that believes that we need our organic government back in place. You know, this large N, small caps, the rest of Nevada. The organic constitutional government needs to be put back in place, and not these corporations, because the state of Nevada, all caps, is a corporation and whatnot, and we just need to do that and have that ready. But it comes down to who's going to enforce it, who's going to, you know, you need the military, you need the police and whatnot. And frankly, the Metro is completely corrupt, as we saw at the Bundy Ranch. They have no interest in serving the people. They only serve the elite.
You know, it's the sheriff. I just got off the phone today with a really great sheriff up north, and Jerry, he's the Story County Sheriff, and you know, all of the police departments are guided by their leader. Yeah. So if we get a good leader in there, you know, because I have to tell you, I am pro law enforcement. You know, that we have some really great law enforcement here, and then we have a few bad apples, and those bad apples have to go. But the ones that get involved in protecting our city and protecting the citizens, and those, I have the utmost respect for them. It's just the bad ones that we always are hearing about.
You know, I'd love to be able to agree with you, but as you say, it comes from the top down, and it's poisoned everything. Right. And they're really just revenue generators at this point. So, you know, I don't see them solving a lot of crimes. It's just that there's a whole lot of corruption with that. And I think it's not just the police that need to wear body cameras right now. It's almost everyone needs to wear a body camera to be able to protect themselves later, to be able to explain this is exactly what happened.
You know, unfortunately, it is coming to that, because just as we saw today, even with the helicopter camera, we really didn't see everything. So it's sad, but what we did see was LaVoy Finicum's hands up, and he got shot. And as they were shooting him, he was trying to cover his wounds and put his hands back up. That was the saddest thing, you know?
Yeah. Terrible. But here's the thing. Yeah. You know, I actually called some folks in a chat room that I'm on Skype. They said, "Oh, Patricia, have you talked to Glenn Palmer, Sheriff Glenn Palmer?" And I go, "Is he a good guy or a bad guy?" And they said, "Oh, he's a good guy." Man, did he sucker them in. This has been, you know, what the government has is something called game theory, and they were able to predict people's reactions to things. I think they completely missed the Bundy Ranch. They didn't know, they maybe know militia would come because they had some plants and things like that. That was heavily infiltrated, and it's a miracle that nothing happened. No shots were fired. But they didn't expect that the rest of the 3,000 to show up from all over the country. So they've done a very good job controlling that, holding a gun to the Hammonds' heads and say, "Tell Ammon Bundy and his group to go away, and if you go down there, you're going to get shot." They really intimidated those people, and I can't blame them for being scared, because they've seen what these people will do. But on the other hand, they really played these folks with the sheriff saying all the right things and suckering them in. he had no intention of being at that meeting. He was at the roadblock. And you see the picture of him with someone, and he's next to another man that we also think is a sheriff. He hasn't been positively identified yet. I don't know if you know who that other person is, but he's laughing at the scene. And we see Sheriff Palmer with a pretty intent. You could probably tell me what kind of assault weapon that was.
I have to tell you the video footage that I saw was on my computer screen, so I didn't get to see any close-up people laughing because it was from the air. Maybe there's other videos.
No, this is just a still photograph of them afterwards, and you can see the flares are down. There's about 20 minutes burned off the flares, and he's standing there with a long gun, some kind of serious assault, and the other man standing next to him, his shirt sleeves, is laughing. I mean, and this, and I wanted to make sure this wasn't some other accident. No, it was the Oregonian and Oregon Live, which are notoriously Marxist and have been totally spinning this thing, for the government. No, they identified it. They said that's Sheriff Glenn Palmer, and he was there, at the roadblock. And so he sucked these people in all along. I mean, and so he was supposed to be Sheriff of the Year. So this makes me seriously question Richard Mack's organization. I've met a lot of the people from that. I went to one of their conferences, and it's absolutely.
Wait, what did Richard Mack say about this?
Richard Mack was up there. I haven't talked to Richard about this, because I really don't want to, and I have him on speed dial, but I'm not interested in talking to him about this, because this is something for this man to be this much of a traitor to this cause and to have been in on this ruse that they have played against these good men and women that have been up there. I mean, tells me a whole lot. This didn't just happen. You don't just make somebody, it's not just a coincidence. There's no coincidence here. Oh, he just happened to be the Sheriff of the Year, and then he's a traitor like this. This has been well planned and well orchestrated. Ammon's been completely open about putting this out, calling people, to say, be on standby, be aware of this, for several months now. And so they've had a good long time to play this, to put all these pieces in place. Just like they had the whole thing trying to frighten people, bringing blood and supplies in, trauma unit into the hospital, and barricading the courthouse and all that nonsense. The feds have just done nothing but fear porn to try to, turn the community against them. So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's very sad. I have to tell you, it's very, very sad.
Yeah, it really is. So if you were, what's your advice to people? What would you say? We need to take this country back. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we need to right this ship. The bottom line is we need to right this ship.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to have to get the people activated with their elected officials, because the congressman from Oregon who wrote the law that basically told the BLM they can't do what they do because of the law that Congressman Walden has written that don't have consequences in the law for bureaucratic government agencies that break the law. There's no consequence. So once I get to D.C., we have to take those laws and we have to amend them and put consequences in. And just as the government is lawless, and just as sometimes citizens are lawless, they go to prison. So the lawless government employees are going to have to be accountable, just as you and I are.
Well, I think the quote is Aesop. This is nothing new. And I believe he said, the petty thieves we hang, the rest we elect to office. Mm-hmm. This has been going on forever. This is a criminal cabal. There is no rule of law left in this country. The courts are completely corrupted. You can't get a fair shake in court if you're against a government agency. The fact that they reversed the Hage case last week in citing that Judge Robert C. Jones was biased against the government is so pathologically ridiculous, when that's like saying the judge was biased against murderers and rapists.
Right. No, I know. I just spoke with Ramona today. We're doing a big story on that as well. And don't forget that she had won the 2 cases before that.
Yeah, and you're talking about Ramona Morrison, who is the Hage's daughter, correct? Ramona Morrison, Hage Morrison.
Yes, that's exactly who I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I've been waiting to talk with her too, but this has kind of trumped the whole thing. So, well, Michelle, you agreed to a half an hour here tonight. I've appreciated your time. If you'd like to stay on and continue to discuss this, I'd like to. But I'd like to ask you, in closing, if you're going to leave me now, you were in the Assembly for a bit here, and now you're running for Congress. How come?
Yes, I'm running for Congress because we need true legislative conservatives, not campaign conservatives, in D.C. to actually fight for Nevadans in D.C. and not just rub elbows like we see every day.
Yeah, and there has to be consequences for judges, for corrupt judges. There has to be consequences for lawless officials. I mean, they have to reel in these administrative agencies. Are you familiar with the Buck Act?
Am I familiar with who?
The Buck Act?
I'm not.
Okay. Well, see, that to me is one of the linchpins. And I think this started after the Civil War. I mean, it started with the Reconstruction Acts of 1867 is when the federal government started, making themselves kings over everything. And then the Buck Act, the man that wrote the Buck Act, it was only supposed to be for the national parks, which are unconstitutional, but they actually murdered him and expanded it as a template over the entire country. And that's what and then our own Pat McCarran was the thug that wrote the Administrative Act that gave all these rogue agencies their power and no congressional oversight.
We have a lot of work to do, and I just want to thank you for having me on your show. And I'm sure that if you want, I'll come back and join you again.
Well, I'd love to have you back anytime, Michelle.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
She's been great to work with. Thank you so much, Michelle. Good luck in your campaign. And we'll turn this around. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
And I just really want to unwind some of these other things about this situation with this Sheriff Palmer. That is very, very disconcerting. And what's disconcerting to me about, first of all, when I saw that picture, I went, oh my gosh. Well, first of all, there's two things going on here. One of it, did this happen in Harding County? No, they lured these people out on highway, I think it's 385 or 384. It's the middle of nowhere, running through Oregon, nothing between small towns. And they lured them out into the middle of nowhere. And so when I checked it, and they're reporting that it was in a town called Seneca. So I looked up Seneca on the map, and I was amazed that was in Grant County. And then I saw the picture of Sheriff Palmer there with a weapon at the roadblock, that he was one of the people that helped the roadblock. Now, when you get to see this video that the FBI has released, unedited, video from the FBI about this, they're showing a very narrow range. They are not showing the 40 cars that Victoria Sharp had reported that they were there. And so you'll see she reported that there was lasers on them all the time when they got out of the car, loads of them, and that they had shot up the car. She felt that it was at least 120 rounds that they had put into the car. They shot out the whole left window. They didn't have the right angle on the other side to get that, but they did shoot the car from that side. It's just a miracle that more people weren't killed. An absolute miracle that more people weren't killed. So I think it's it's just a pretty fascinating thing when a government can be this corrupt. I'm amazed. How long are we going to put up with this? I really have to ask you that. How long? I'd like to play a song for you folks. I'm gonna bring it up here. It was written for LaVoy Finicum, and I want to thank Hawk. They've had a tribute going on Hawk's Nest tonight for LaVoy, and Carol Bundy, went over and saw those folks yesterday, the family, and so we'll get a report from them on how they're doing. But I just thought it was. I've never met a person, and I only had the chance to meet him. He was just on the fly. Ryan handed him the phone. If you listen to the show regularly, you'll remember that conversation. But here's a man named Jordan Page, and he's got a Ballad of LaVoy Finicum. Cowboys stand for freedom, and I just want to play this for you. I don't think he'll mind.
What's up, everybody? This is Jordan Page. In light of the recent events in Oregon, I just wrote a song that I want to share with you. This is called The Ballad of LaVoy, Finicum. Subtext, Cowboys stand for freedom. He was a man who loved to walk the land, turn his cheek but also take a stand. His conviction called, he followed what he felt was right. Well, there's no telling just what time will bring. You can live for nothing or for everything, but when the pushes come to shove, and tell me, will you find? I'm only talking about a cowboy stand for freedom. I'm just talking about a name carved in the stone. A friend and brother to anyone. He's riding off into the setting sun. Drive on, cowboy, he's heading home. Well, there's almost right when there's nearly wrong, as you live your life from sunrise to dawn, and then it's over and the moment's gone. You can testify to things unseen, but the world is blind, can't see a thing. All you can do is try to be a human being. I'm only talking about a cowboy stand for freedom. I'm just talking about a name carved in the stone. A friend and brother to anyone. He's riding off until the setting sun. Drive on, cowboy, he's heading home. I know not what course of the man may take. I can't see that far down the road. But as for me and mine, make no mistake, the weight of justice is a heavy load, and I'm living by code. He left his home to go and take a stand, as voice rang out across the deafening land, and in the end it was a bullet that exposed the lies. The truth remembered is a battle won, though his murder cannot be undone. It rings out like an echo, thundering across the night. But here's to all the cowboys who stand for freedom. Why do we watch them from afar with hearts of stone? He's riding off to the setting sun. The thoughts of many from the voice of one will drive on, cowboy,
was Jordan Page, Ballad of LaVoy Finicum. Cowboys stand for freedom. And I want to thank Richard for sending that to me today. My correspondent said, I have a day job these days. Here's an interesting story from the day job. It just happened yesterday. I have a cool young man that I work with, and he knows Harding County pretty well. He's from up in Oregon, but has spent a lot of time in Harding County. And so he went and was Googling it in between calls, and because we have a computer in front of us. And so one of the our other coworkers came along, who's actually in a supervisory position, and she looked at his screen. She says, "Oh, I can't stand those people. I just hate the Bundys." And I let her go on and on for a while. And then I spoke to her and I said, "Well, the Bundys are personal friends of mine." And the look on her face, she just was shocked. And she said, "Oh my gosh, Patricia, I'm so sorry." And I go, "No, that's perfectly okay. I'm sure I know lots of people are confused about everything with the Bundys." And so when I hear an intelligent person say something like that, I know if they would sit down with me and listen to some facts that I could turn their understanding around and their opinion around. And she says, "Well, I really don't understand this. And I just don't get it. So I would really like to hear about that." And I go, "Okay, well, I'm willing to share it with you." So sometime in the next week or so, I'm sure we'll be sitting together somewhere and getting to tell her the whole story. And so it's funny because she felt so bad about that she came up to me later and said, and just kept apologizing. And I said, "Well, it's not like she said, I can't believe, I have a habit of putting my foot in my mouth." And I go, "That's okay. I thought that was absolutely fine. I love to hear when people are confused." And so my whole thing is to give people talking points about this, because I'd like everybody to be able to share with people just a few things about this situation. First of all, they want to say, well, there's, oh my gosh. And what's going on right now is the government is able to impersonate organizations and put out fake press releases, making it look like they come from, the actual organization, and putting out disinformation. So I'm still not sure, and I'll ask Carol if she knows later on if there's still people at the refuge. I know there were some people barricaded in there for a while. Ammon, there was a printed report from Lisa Bundy saying Ammon wouldn't want you to leave, but then there was a recorded one later where she's saying, "No, Ammon says go home to your families," and that sounds more like Ammon. This isn't over. It's just starting. And so it'll be very interesting. And and I thought it was pretty great today that someone and I'll bring up the report. Let me find it here. It was that Michael Savage actually supported and was saying that he was going to raise money for them. And I think that's pretty awesome. Well, I can probably do it this way. Okay, hold on. And because I thought that was great. That's the first public figure that anybody with any, clout around here, and maybe does or doesn't have clout, but I think he does. And this, I thought this is the first time I've heard someone high up say this. Top-ranking conservative radio host and author of many best-selling books took on a topic during his most recent broadcast that's been playing second fiddle to the political press coverage: the Oregon standoff between ranchers and feds that resulted in the fatal police shooting of LaVoy Finicum, age 55. Well, he'd be 56 the following day. In discussing Donald Trump and playing clips of his recent interview with the Republican Party frontrunner, Savage referred to Finicum's shooting as a murder and called for the U.S. Attorney General's office to investigate. Well, I find that they just cover up their own misdeeds. I mean, the F.B.I. does it, the Attorney General's office does it, the Department of Injustice does it. So we're going to have to really demand this. He says, "I'm demanding an investigation, and I'm demanding the Attorney General send a task force to Oregon. And if the feds won't, the United Nations ought to look into it." Well, I don't know who's going to make these people responsible. So I hope the Committee of Safety, I hope there's a common law grand jury. I just want to know where this is going to go. And right now, I don't see a path. But there's got to be one, and we need to, stay strong and keep the faith in this. It's, protesters occupying the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, which we now know is the resource center. And, it's just ridiculous the way the media has spun this. And they've been trying to, we can't forget the Hammonds. That's why we're here. But also the absolutely other just amazing, egregious things that have been done here. And I'm gonna let Ammon tell you one of these stories. I've got it on here. Let me find it because it's remarkable. And so I want to know where Blaine Cooper is. I want to know where he is. That's one of the questions I'm asking because he's MIA. No one's heard from him. I want to talk about the man that was driving this Mark McConnell character. No one knows him. No one knows him. And he's the one saying that no, LaVoy Finicum charged the feds. Really? You can see here he wasn't charging anyone. He was walking with his hands up. So we know there's a Fed plant. I've said before, and I'll say this when Carol's on in a while, the problem with the Bundys is they are just pathologically altruistic. They are too kind. They are too trusting. And it's amazing to me. So let me try to find this. Shoot, I know I watched it here. And Pete Santilli's been pretty much outed here. I'm pretty clear that he's in with the feds and probably, they have to arrest him. I also question that man, Joseph O'Shaughnessy. I didn't meet him after the standoff. I didn't meet him till this year at the barbecue. And I got a real bad vibe off him. And I know that's not enough to say, really indict someone on, and I don't intend to, but I just don't understand why why was he picked up an hour later? It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. There's no way we can. Somebody just said we need a GoFundMe account. I don't think GoFundMe will not put one up. Here's the problem with GoFundMe. Anytime the ADL doesn't like something on GoFundMe, they threaten GoFundMe or other crowdfunding platforms, such as We Share Crowdfunding. They don't like the project. If they don't want anybody getting funding, then they will come and go to the company and say, shut down that fundraiser or we're going to shut your entire company down. And that's what they do. So a GoFundMe account is not going to work right now. We'll never get the money. They will shut it down. So there has to be another form of fundraising that we can do here. I've got to find this one. You've got to hear this story if you haven't already. Let me try to find it. And I can't imagine. I've been thinking about the situation with Gordon Call and Yuri Von Call, his son. Yuri Von Call is ambushed them. They got out of the car. They didn't, these people knew it was up. In the Gordon Call case, a federal officer was killed by federal ammunition. I mean, the ballistics techs proved it. It came out of one of their own guns, and yet Yuri Von Call is still in prison today. So there's another situation that needs justice. This isn't anything new. This hasn't been, just started. It's been going on for a long time. I
wanted to tell a story to remind people of why we're here. We came here because the Hammond family was put into arrest because the refuge wanted their ranch and the Hammonds would not sell it. They tried in many different ways to get it, and so their final effort was to prosecute the Hammonds. We have another rancher just a few miles from the refuge headquarters here that the refuge has been trying to purchase their ranch for a long time, and this rancher has refused. And so what we do know the facts are is that refuge personnel was over there snooping around their property, and the very same day the sheriff came and arrested them and put them in jail here locally for 89 days. During that 89 days, they were feeding during that 89 days, they charged them $500 a day to feed their cattle. and that money went to the sheriff's son. And then to pay that bill, a $500 a day bill, they had to sell the cattle and the stock, leaving the ranchers with nothing.
We'll finish that. It's about another minute right after the break, everybody. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Sacred Cow Barbecue. I'm your host, Patricia Aiken. It's a very sad week here when we see up close and personal just how tyrannical, murderous, just insatiable this federal government is. And I don't mean just the federal government. I mean, the state governments are just franchises of the federal government. And the fact that they have these sheriffs so locked up, when sheriffs, and that they would be able to enforce the state constitution and the federal constitution that Ammon Bundy made the other day. If you haven't heard about it, what the feds went through to put these people out of business. So I'm going to finish that now.
They finally got out of jail, and in order to stay afloat and pay their legal fees, they had to sell their equipment. And after most of the equipment was gone, they were left with nothing, and they couldn't even pay their mortgage on their ranch, which was owner financed. So the previous owner who financed them came to them and said, "We'll give you $100,000 down payment back if you turn the ranch title back over to us." Now, the rancher thought that was odd and began to look around a little bit and found that the refuge manager, Chad Carges, had already made a deal with the previous owners to buy it for a nice profit. And so what had happened is the ranchers were put in duress here so that they would have to default on their loan so that the previous owner could take the title back of the ranch and then sell it to the refuge. And that was their method to get it back into the refuge's hands. And that's the kind of dirty stuff that's been going around all over. I heard of another rancher that many years ago, they just came in and condemned their ranch completely. And then the refuge ended up in their hands. The list goes on and on. They've flooded people out and taken their ranch. They've just pushed them out. They've even burned their homes from time to time. It's been very, very egregious what is going on. And these are the reasons why government should not have the ability to acquire land without permission from the state legislatures and without using it for the proper purposes. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Thank you.
Well, there you heard it. That's, it's not just the Bundys, it's not just the Hammonds, it's not just the Finicums. This is going on all over. I don't know what this is going to take. I mean, the federal government is obviously terrified that Americans are going to wake up and do something about this. Really pretty amazing that they've gotten away with it so far. I want to read you some of the lies that they have put out because somebody sent me, I believe it's here we go, the affidavit the government's pushing. And I want to give a shout out to Chris Ann Hall. She's been doing a good job on this. I really appreciate her work that she's been up there taking this matter. So I want to read just part of the criminal complaint here. And it's naming Ammon, John Ritzheimer, Joseph O'Shaughnessy, Ryan Payne, Ryan Bundy, Brian Cavalier, Shauna Cox, Pete Santilli. I mean, it's kind of funny. We'll see how this all shakes out, but I think some of those people are federal informants at the very least. And so this is the criminal complaint. It was on or about January 2nd in the county of Harney in the District of Oregon. The defendants violated Section 18 U.S.C. Section 372, conspiracy to impede officers of the United States from just discharging their official duties through the use of force, intimidation, or threats. First of all, that's all. I got to call Bravo Sierra on all of that. They didn't impede any officer anywhere. They were 40 miles outside of town in a building that was closed for the winter and wasn't even locked for the winter. They went in and cleaned it up. They kept the walkways shoveled for when bird watchers would come and all that. They were not impeding anything or anyone. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense, trumped up charges. Well, and let's just remember in the Maxim Labs case, when they came in and confiscated $2 million worth of supplements and cash and gold, when they couldn't find anything wrong with the supplements, what did they do? They said, well, and this is what somebody testified, in one of the agents in a deposition, he testified when we couldn't find anything wrong with the supplements, we didn't want to give them back. And so we said, why don't we just see if we can throw up a charge of mail or wire fraud and see if we can make that stick. And so that's what they did. And the abuse continues. So here we have Catherine Armstrong, and I'd like to know more about her, having been first duly sworn, do hereby depose and state as follows. Introduction and agent. I am a special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and have been employed for approximately 1.5 years. Oh, here we have an agent with loads of experience. Isn't this going to be wonderful? 1.5 years experience. Boy, she is looking for a promotion. I am currently assigned to the FBI's Portland Division, and I am part of the Violent and Organized Crime Squad. In 2014, I successfully completed 21 weeks of FBI training at the FBI Academy located in Quantico, Virginia. Oh, well, bully for you, Catherine. During this time, I was taught the use and practical application of various investigative techniques that federal law enforcement officers are allowed to employ. In addition to my formalized training in the violations of the law at the FBI Academy, I have also acquired knowledge and information pertaining to violations of federal law from numerous other sources, including formal and informal training of the law enforcement officers. And this is just nonsense. Okay, prior to joining the FBI, I was a prosecutor with the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office for approximately 2.5 years and briefly worked in the private sector as a civil litigator. I attended law school at Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I have been certified to practice law since October of 2010. Oh, we got a lawyer, someone with a bar card, in addition to somebody with a badge. This isn't pretty. This in 1.5 years experience with the FBI. Okay. Purpose of affidavit. This affidavit is submitted to support a criminal complaint and arrest warrant for Ammon Bundy, hereafter A. Bundy, white male, date of birth 9/1/75, John Ritzka, all these people, white male, white male, white male. Here we go. White male, Shauna Cox, white female, and Pete Santilli, white male, for the felony crime of conspiracy to impede officers of the United States from discharging their official duties through the use of force, intimidation, or threats in violation of Title 18 U.S. Code Section 372. The named individuals, most of whom have been armed, have been working together with additional known and unknown actors to control federal property while refusing to leave, intending to impede and prevent the force of federal officials who work on and use that property from performing their official duties. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is how we know when the feds are lying. Well, their lips are moving. We live in opposite land, so take whatever they say and turn it 180 degrees in the other direction. They were not impeding anyone. There was no one out there. It was unoccupied. It was closed for the winter. That they've impeded no one. And if anybody and everyone could come to the property, there was no problem. The facts set forth in this affidavit are based on my personal knowledge obtained from other individuals during my participation in this investigation, including other law enforcement officers, interviews of witnesses. Oh yeah, we know who they get for witnesses. They ignore the eyewitnesses that saw the BLM setting fires around the Hammond ranch, and then they get the Hammond's cousin, who was 13 at the time and mentally ill, to testify, an incompetent witness. Persons identified by name in the photographs contained herein have been independently identified by a witness with knowledge or a law enforcement officers through motor vehicle records and other criminal history records. All photographs of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge that depict the land, entrance gates, and building inside and out have been identified, blah, blah, blah. So let's go in there. Here's the investigation. Based on the foregoing facts, I have probable cause probable cause, here it is, to believe that starting on and about January 2nd and continuing through the date of this affidavit, all the defendants and others, all the people here, and other known and unknown individuals did conspire to impede by force, intimidation, or threat office of the, they're just repeating the same lie. Based on the activities here and others in connection, a unit of the National Wildlife Refuge System managed by the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. This is federal property. Well, we know there's no such thing. It's unconstitutional for them to have it. June 6, 2012, Dwight and Stephen Hammond were convicted of 2 counts of arson by a jury in the District of Oregon. Well, let's just review that, shall we? The prosecution spent 6 days. The defense got 1 day and weren't allowed to tell why fires were started, why prescribed fires, why back burns, that the fact that they saved their home, saved their winter pasture, and put out a fire that had burned thousands of acres. They weren't allowed to say that. Originally sentenced, it's just nonsense. And it talks about October 7th, 2015, were resentenced to serve a mandatory 5-year term of imprisonment. On January 4th, they reported to federal prison prior to surrendering to serve the Hammonds, through their attorney, continued to distance themselves from Ammon Bundy and his group. Yes, because the feds were holding a gun to their heads. That's why. And telling them, distance yourself from Ammon Bundy. Just like Judge Grasty and others were trying to tell Fire Marshal Chris Briles, distance yourself from those people. You need to distance yourself from those people. Yeah, because they were setting up, fake militia people to go around and harass people. And then when he found out, guess what he found out? Oh, yeah, they weren't militia. They were FBI agents impersonating militia. So there's very little in this situation that's reality. So on January 4th, 2016, Ammon Bundy addressed the media and stated that he named his group of protesters the Citizens for Constitutional Freedom. Well, there we finally have a first fact that I agree with. And they were acting in support of the Hammonds. Ammon Bundy told a national morning news show that members of the CCF were armed because we are serious about being here, we're serious about defending our rights, and we are serious about getting some things straightened out. When asked on the show if he anticipated it would lead to violence, Bundy responded, only if the government wants to take it there. So obviously still in a defensive posture. And I want to repeat for the record here tonight that Victoria Sharp said that they didn't even reach for their firearms. Who is going to reach for their firearms when you've got 40 cars with men in full tacticals surrounding you? Who is ever going to reach for their firearm? No one in their right mind. No one in their right mind. It's just a ridiculous story. And if anybody believes that, man, I got a bridge to sell them in Arizona. Okay, their purposes in a video posted on the internet, Citizens for Constitutional Freedom news conference, Ammon Bundy said their purpose is to restore and defend the Constitution. They have spent 2 months petitioning the state and county representatives to stand for the Hammonds against the so-called unconstitutional actions. Bundy said, we feel that we have exhausted all prudent measures and have been ignored, and it has been left to us to decide whether we will allow these things to go on or whether we make a stand. In the video, Finicum makes a statement about the purported oppression against ranchers, especially the Hammonds. Yeah, but they don't say what that is, do they? So then, Harney County Sheriff Dave Ward held a press conference, this was on January 4th, and informed the armed occupiers that the Hammonds had peacefully surrendered themselves to complete their federal sentence, and informed the armed occupiers that it was time to leave. Oh, well, that's a strong statement, isn't it? So now they're talking about Ammon and Payne visited Harney County Sheriff Dave Ward in Harney County in October. During the visit, Bundy and Wayne told Ward that he needed to protect the Hammonds from going back to prison. Payne and Ammon Bundy informed Ward that if the Hammonds spent one more day in jail, there would be extreme civil unrest. I doubt they said there would be. I said there probably could be, but I don't think they made that kind of threat. On November 12th, Ammon Bundy publicly posted a letter from the Bundy family to Harney County Sheriff Dave Ward. The letter was posted online at the bundyranch.blogspot.com. You can see it yourself, and was still publicly viewable as of January 26th. In summary, the Bundy family claims that federal employees are abusing their positions within the federal government to punish the Hammond family. Several additional blog posts made on, is there a problem here? Further state that it is the Bundy family position that the Hammond family has been illegally arrested. Yeah, anybody would see this. Even the district attorney refused to take the case. So it'd be really interesting if she brings up if there was a grand jury. I don't think they had a grand jury. I think they did this all on their own. So a Facebook community page entitled Harney County Liberty News includes 8 videos on the page. I personally viewed the Facebook page on January 7th. Well, good going, Catherine. And all the videos appeared to be narrated by the same individuals who identify themselves on several of the videos. In one of the videos posted on December 12th, entitled Time for Some Camping, the individual is pictured standing outside with the roadside Hammond Ranch Road, clearly visible in the background. The individual talks about winter camping and camping in the area. Yeah? So the wind and snow yesterday, I neglected to post this lovely cattle drive, and they're just going, it's just drivel, total drivel here. And this is an attorney and a federal investigator, and this is the best she can do. I mean, she's going on for pages here. Okay, December 6th, Harney County was shot. A citizen of Harney County was shopping at the Safeway grocery store in Burns, Oregon. Citizen was wearing a BLM shirt. Citizen was confronted by 2 men, one whom she identified as Ritzheimer. Citizen reported to law enforcement that she heard yelling, and when she turned around, the second individual shouted, "You're BLM," at her. The person further stated to Citizen that they know what car she drives and would follow her home. Well, that's really interesting. He also stated he was going to burn Citizen's house down. Well, it's these kind of reports that make me think that Ritzheimer's a Fed too. Okay? So Ritzheimer and the second individual left the area in a black pickup truck with black canopy and no visible license plate. Since the incident, Citizen has observed a similar vehicle outside her residence. Citizen was unable to identify the driver of the vehicle when she later saw it. The following week, a second vehicle described as a white truck with a pink license plate and big rebel flag sticker on the back window aggressively tailgated Citizen, flashing lights and driving erratically. That was probably the feds too. Citizen believed the second incident was, they really don't know to be subtle. They're not going to have a small bumper sticker or a small decal. They're going to make something that you can't miss. Like when, it's like throwing down the Gadsden flag and a swastika and, whatever, and saying it's on and nonsense like that. They really don't know how to be subtle. So Citizen believed the second incident was related to the first, even though it was in a completely different truck. On December 25th, the video posted to the internet web channel indicated the video as a call out to all patriots to meet at the Safeway parking lot in Burns. One of the individuals states they are in Burns and are there to support the Hammonds. A screenshot from the video attached below shows O'Shaughnessy on the right side and Ritzheimer on the right. Yep, and the people in the middle are Blaine Cooper and Jason Patrick. I'm going to withhold judgment on Jason Patrick. I have some questions. But the other 3, I'm going to say they're in some way tied to the feds. Ritzheimer in a car saying, "We the people need to take a stand. We need real men and women here to take a stand," and that he has had to do a lot of soul searching. He is 100% willing to lay down his life to fight against tyranny in this country. Well, certainly not taking a page out of Ammon Bundy's book if that behavior and that report is true. If it's true, I say he's a Fed. So according to an open source reporting that I reviewed in conversations I have had with other law enforcement officers on January 2nd, several hundred unidentified individuals participated in a protest in Burns, Oregon related to the resentencing of Stephen and Dwight Hammond. Yeah. Is there a problem there? We still have the ability to meet and congregate where we like. Following the protest, Bundy, Ritzheimer, O'Shaughnessy, blah, 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 and others entered the wildlife refuge, blocked the entrance to the refuge, and began their armed occupation of several buildings within the refuge. The refuge and all buildings located thereon there are federal property and facilities. The armed occupation has been continuous and ongoing. Yeah, right. Anybody could come and go as they pleased. Located in Harney County, District of Oregon. A news article posted on the internet on January 3rd, pardon me, updated on the 4th, pardon me. Oh, it's considered bad etiquette to die on the show. This photograph has been verified and depicting that the entrance, that it was blocked. Well, I don't blame them. Getting set up. It was only maybe blocked on that day. So this is they must be blazing. They impeded federal. Well, did any federal officials come here? No. Were they trying to get in? I'm sure they would have let him in. Cautiously. According to a senior official with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the Pacific region. Can we have that person's name, please? Wild and scenic Donner and Blitzen River flowing into its southern boundary. They go on about, hosts 320 bird species, 58 mammals. Wildlife property includes more than 200 miles of water delivery ditches, all this kind of stuff. Okay. Refuge property also contains 13 historic buildings. Many were built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s and early 40s. She's going on about what the winter hunting season closed at the end of December. Currently, there are no hunting seasons open on the infrastructure. The whole thing is shut down for the season, for the winter. It's staffed by employees of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a result of the armed occupation by known conspirators and others, which began on January 2nd and continuing to the employees who work at the refuge, I'll just call it the refuge, have been prevented from reporting to work because of threats of violence posted by the defendant. There's no one out there. It's closed for the winter. Closed for the winter. They are not working there. Big lie. According to a senior official who are never named, you can notice they never name any of these senior officials. Okay, including but not limited to business, critical management requirements, law enforcement operations, visitor service, and essential maintenance activities. Essential maintenance activities? Are you kidding me? This place was loaded with rat excrement, rat urine. They desecrated boxes and boxes of, Indian artifacts, from the area. I mean, bit limited. You kidding me? I mean, this is such a vast lie that they just keep running here. It's unbelievable. So, Improvement Acts, well supporting act, active contracts, cooperative, and other partnership arrangements requiring work on the part of contractors are not able to occur as a result of the armed occupation. Well, as my friend Richard said the other day, you know what? Armed occupation. You know what? They needed to go into Burns and burn a few buildings down, because then it could go from being an armed occupation to just a protest. Because that's what Ferguson and Baltimore were this year when they were burned down. They were just a protest. Oh, these are protesters burning down the buildings. But because peaceful men are there using this building to work in, that's unoccupied, closed for the winter, was never locked, no trespass signs. Oh, it's an armed occupation. They hate these people. They're making too much sense. According to Special Agent with the Bureau of Land Management, and do we have his name here? Oh, no, we don't. Left the rally that was in support of the Hammonds and traveled to Malheur to take it over, to the refuge to take it over. BLM was notified later that day by a Harney County Sheriff's officer that a source informed him that the group controlled the refuge and had explosives, night vision goggles, weapons, and if they didn't get the fight they wanted out there, they would bring the fight to town. What a big freaking lie. Okay, let's unwind that one for a minute. They moved out there to be 40 miles from town so they wouldn't be bringing anybody in. Oh, Gavin's calling me now. Hold on. Let me bring him in. Oh, Gavin, I'm going to have you hold on. I'm going to dial you in here. Hold on. Okay, add people. I screwed that up. Sorry, everybody. I'm dialing Gavin back in, and in just 1 minute, I'm going to bring Carol Bundy in. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Send better people to Congress. It's passed. Write your congressman.
Right. Absolutely. Now, did what I just said go live, or should I start over?
Start over.
Okay. I think it's hard for us to really look at this. I mean, the tragedies we've seen over the past few days, but also the heroism, the principle, the liberty that has been shown. And this is really key, and this is what I've been saying for weeks, because it's so easy in a nation of lies, in a nation where truth is treason, to get distracted. The people, Ammon Bundy, LaVoy, the people on the Oregon front, they weren't distracted. It was a simple message, and it was a message of, we're past the point of simply protesting, and we're to the point of principled defiance. And, with the video that just came of...
Hello.
Hi, Carol.
Yes.
It's Patricia. I am delighted. This is an amazing woman, everyone. Gavin's just joined us. He's going to stay on for the conversation here. I just want to say, everyone, this is an amazing woman. I have tremendous regard for her. I've spent a lot of hours in her living room and in her front yard, and I only wish I was welcoming Carol Bundy under
You're way too kind, Patricia. Thank you.
Under happier circumstances. Gavin, you're going to have to take over.
Okay.
Thank you so much for making the time.
I think that, and I think this is really how we all feel in America right now, because we've just suffered loss. They've drawn our blood, and LaVoy didn't die in vain, though. Ammon took a stand. The people in Oregon, LaVoy, they took a stand, and they showed us what it looks like to be founding fathers. And I think this is an example that we've really seen in recent years from the Bundy family. And I just watched this video that was released, and it's heartbreaking, but what it shows is exactly what was being said by Ammon and by his wife. Through his wife.
Absolutely, Gavin. It's completely right. Carol, I'm pulling myself together here. I know you went to see the Finicums yesterday. How are they doing?
Yes, I did. They're strong people, and they knew that their father, their grandfather, their husband was doing what he loved and what he stood for. They know that he died doing what he felt was right and what he was passionate about. And although they mourn the loss and they're sad, they're proud of their father.
Oh, I seldomly meet finer men than LaVoy Finicum.
He's awesome, kind-hearted, good. You won't meet a better man or family really in the whole valley. They're amazing people.
The work they were able to do to turn around, troubled youth, to be therapeutic foster parents and have, that whole thing is just amazing. What do you think? Why do you think they were attacking them LaVoy so hard, taking away the kids? Why are they threatened by him? I have my opinion. What's yours?
Well, my opinion is he was a very well-spoken man. He was a very well-liked man. And when he talked, people listened. And I think he was a great teacher. And when they went out and talked to the various ranchers and organizations around there, he had a gift of being able to draw people in to the point that they would understand him, and that they would see the light and understand they began to love the Constitution like he did, because he was able to he was infectious when he went out and visited with people. And I think they were afraid of that.
Absolutely. I feel like he was a flame, and the people that heard him were moths, and they were just drawn to him so powerfully. Gavin, what's your opinion of LaVoy?
I think that LaVoy exemplifies the American patriot. And by the way, hello, Mrs. Bundy. I've never met you, but it's really great to have you on here.
Thank you. I was going to say hello to you.
Yes. All right, bad manners.
So I dealt with LaVoy in helping them with some media things and trying to get the word out a little bit. I've never met LaVoy in person, and of course I dealt with Ammon. But what I saw from LaVoy, because my role in this was kind of analyzing the videos that were coming out and kind of watching the message and trying to, I guess, for lack of a better word, keep my finger on the pulse, because the conversation is so important. And LaVoy understood that, and so does Ammon. And this is what was so amazing about what happened in Oregon, because despite our loss here, the message was not one of, tough guy gun-toting patriots, tough guy gun-toting militiamen looking for a fight. It was principled patriots who are willing to love their neighbor, who are willing to defend the rule of law, and who are willing to stand up to maintain that for our posterity.
Right. Carol, you've suffered a loss of a tremendous friend here, but you have two sons in jail right now, and we know the federal buzzsaw. Get us caught up on. I was just reading the affidavit that the stupid special agent at the FBI, who's also an attorney, wrote, chock full of lies. So
yes,
yeah, I know you've seen it. What's the most important thing that you would have to tell people tonight?
First off, I would have to tell people that this is America. I don't believe for a minute that my boys will get any justice in a federal court with a federal lawyer and a federal judge. But I do believe in God. And I can tell you one thing, they not only assassinated a very dear friend and an awesome patriot and an icon, he's an icon of America, the American cowboy that everybody loves. They tried to murder everybody in that truck. They shot hundreds of rounds into the truck. So I know that God's watching out for them, or I would have two dead sons and two dead friends as well.
It amazes me that everyone isn't dead.
So I know that there's a higher power helping those of us that are willing to stand and willing to work this way. I'm so grateful nobody else was hurt. And us Bundys are pretty tight, and I think the battle's just begun.
Everyone has said that right from the beginning, that if anything happens to these men, that it's on. And I wish I knew what that meant. I had a long conversation with Ammon last summer after this, debacle at the legislature. He said we wish there was some other way, but we don't see any other way now. You can't send better people to Congress. The Legal Counsel Bureau unwinding his whole thing and saying that the Bundy bill was unconstitutional. Just the lies that they tell. And they are so threatened by men of character. And Carol, you have raised men of character.
Thank you.
How did you do that?
I think we did that maybe through example a little bit. And because I come from a long line of people that a handshake meant something, your word meant something, and that you were taught to love your neighbor. And if you treated your neighbor nice, you'd get treated nice back. And I think through an example is how they learned that. And I think they're just very genuine, good boys with a good heart. They weren't doing that for any glory and fame. We were doing that to help some ranchers up there. But this is the thing that I'm seeing. We're starting to wake people up. You got to remember that Clive and I and my family has been at this fight for over 25 years. So we're hardened in one way, and another way we have an understanding. And so we're starting to wake people up. But it's not going to happen overnight.
No, the media has, the trolls are out in force. Every troll from here to Tel Aviv is going to spin this thing and the ugly things that they say. But eventually, I believe truth will out.
Well, you can see that video that they just put out tonight.
Yes.
It's very obvious that it was very obvious who was doing the shooting.
Right.
And it's very obvious who shot first. And a shootout usually has two people shooting at each other. And I really didn't see only one side pointing guns at anybody.
Well, that's Victoria's testimony, is that they didn't even reach for their sidearm. What man in his right mind would think that his sidearm is going to be enough with there's 40 vehicles there, men in full tactical with full assault weapons, and you're going to pull your sidearm? Really?
Well, I think LaVoy, you could see that he ran from the truck, and I think he was trying to save the passengers that he had in his vehicle. I think that's why he stepped away from the truck.
Right.
And what an awesome man. What a tribute that is to his family, that he was not only standing up for our country, for America, for the Constitution, but also for those that were around him.
Right. Carol, attorneys seem to be on this already. I have a low opinion of attorneys, but
I do too.
Yeah, I know that they're agents of the court. And so, there's some other people that would like to help, I think. How can we raise funds here? Who can we send funds to? Ammon has seven children. Ryan has 7. Are they even on that now, or is it 6?
No, Ryan has 8 and Ammon has 6.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. I was off 1. Okay.
That's all right. Now it's just out the same. It's still 14.
Still 14. Okay. I had the 14 right. How are Lisa and Angie doing?
They're holding up really strong. They're getting a little anxious. They've kind of been without their husbands for a month now.
Right.
But there again, my sons picked good, strong women, and they support their husbands and what they're doing. But they're ready to, quote unquote, have a normal life. But the new normal is not going to be what they think it is.
No, there's no normal anymore. There's no future. There is absolutely no future for these children unless we get this straightened out.
There's not, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it. America's waking up. America's still a good country. There's still a lot of good people here.
Right. I was telling someone earlier, and I'll tell you, I was at my day job, and I was telling this young man that works next to me, and so he brought up Harney County because he knows Harney County. He's spent a lot of time there. He's from Idaho originally. And he brought up something on Harney County. And one of the supervisors came out and saw that. And she's a really cool gal usually. And she says, "Oh, I can't stand those people. I just hate the Bundys." And she went on and on. I let her. And then when she got through, I said, "Well, the Bundys are personal friends of mine." And she said, "Oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry." And I said, No, it's fine. I really like when intelligent people say things like that, because that tells me that they have never heard the facts. And once you hear the facts, I believe that your opinion will change and you'll have the same opinion I have of these people. And she said, "Well, you know what? You're right. I don't know the facts. I don't understand this. I'd really like to know." So there we go.
And you're right. And that's what I mean by America's waking up. America's starting to dig. They're starting to learn. They're starting to study.
Absolutely.
And if that's all we do is maybe set a spark, then we have succeeded.
Ammon shared with me this summer that after this debacle at the legislature, that he started studying like 1770, what was going on then. And he felt it was the same exact situation going on. The king owned everything. The king's men abused everyone. They couldn't get justice in court, even if they could get into court. And it was the same exact situation. And it was the same that, the king had vastly superior technology. I mean, we had, farmers with pitchforks, and yet God intervened and our country was born.
And he will again.
I believe that, Carol. I really do. So,
I do too.
So, do you get to talk to Ammon at all, or Ryan, and you must be grateful that your son Mel wasn't still there.
I am. I am grateful. We have not gotten to talk to him. Most of what we learn is like you guys, through the social media, or through their lawyers, they've got to visit with their wives, and then my daughter-in-law have called and we've got to chit-chat a little bit, but we've had no communication with them at all.
My God.
So that's been kind of hard for us.
Yeah, I'm sure. Shauna Cox, is she a relative of yours? I've never been able to place her in this, but I know she's always been involved.
She's just a very dear friend and a strong patriot and a believer in the Constitution and America.
So why did they arrest her and not Victoria Sharp?
From what I can understand, now this won't be verified, but from what I can understand, they wanted the ones that had been there from day one.
Okay.
And that had stayed there. And Victoria had just showed up the week before with her family. They sing gospel songs.
Right.
And she had just showed up with her family, and so they said they didn't really have any reason to hold her. Basically, they didn't have a reason to hold her because she wasn't who they wanted, basically.
Right. Now, this charge, all they have on them is they were impeding federal officers. There's been no impedance anywhere. Am I correct?
Yes. You're correct. So they're trumped up charges, but like I said before, they're not going to find any justice in the court that they're in. Either America's got to rise up and demand that justice is served, or we'll just work through it like we do everything else,
Right. Well, I think that's what has to happen. And the situation with, I'm really stunned. They played this very well. They have something called game theory where they can predict how people are going to react. They completely missed the Bundy Ranch. Even if they knew the militia would show up and things like that, and COINTELPRO and all that, they missed out that the other people that made up the 3,000 people that showed up there, they completely missed that. Someone from every state in the union came. But the thing is, Ammon had been putting out this information for a long time and calling for people to be ready to come. And so they were aware of that, and that's why they held a gun to the Hammond's head and says, tell Ammon Bundy to go away. Do you agree?
I agree.
And they kept support from coming. Okay, so we've known that Sheriff Dave Ward has been a tool of, Judge Grass Nasty. That's what we're calling him. And so he's just a pawn in this whole thing. But I have to say, Sheriff Glenn Palmer played them like fiddles.
Well, and I've seen that and I've read that, but there's also some news that's come out now that said that is not the case, that he was at that meeting. So has that been verified? I'm just asking, has that been verified? I don't know.
Oh no, I have. It was on the. I'll send you the link to the photo. They have a photo of him. And it's by the Oregonian and Oregon Live that have been completely anti-protest. And so, Marxist paper. Yes. But it's a picture of him, and it identifies him here. And I'll read you the caption. Because, what horrified me, as I said, where did this happen? And because I know they were traveling to Grant County. And so that's what concerned me. I said, well, if they're in Grant County, how were they ambushed? The sheriff would have had to give the feds permission to set up that roadblock. And so I checked, in Seneca, between John Day and Burns, is Grant County, and that's his jurisdiction. So there's a picture of him with a long gun in his uniform walking, and he's standing next to a man in a long sleeve shirt who's laughing. And it's about 20 minutes later, because that's how you can tell the flares are burned down that much. And it says, Grant County Sheriff Glenn Palmer carries a shotgun back to his vehicle, which was serving as part of a roadblock. Highway 395 was blocked at Seneca between John Day and Burns by the Oregon State Police officers the evening of Tuesday, January 26th. Dave Killen's staff. So here it is. It is photographic evidence. And we actually had that photograph analyzed, and they said that is a legitimate photograph. It hasn't been photoshopped. He was supposed to be at that meeting. They were going to meet him, but that's been a complete ruse. And you know what? And that occurred to me at the time. I said, this is too good. It's a little too good what this sheriff is saying, because most sheriffs would be more diplomatic. They wouldn't be saying, they should release the Hammonds and send the FBI home. That just didn't sound quite right.
Yeah. Well, we know it was a setup. We know it was a trap, and I truly believe they planned on killing more than they did. So we're grateful.
Absolutely.
Grateful that it turned out the way it did, and my heart just breaks for the Finicums. But
My heart breaks for everyone, Carol. You and Cliven have a massive loss going on here yourselves. And what can we do to help?
Pray.
Okay.
That's the best help we can have.
Mm-hmm. They need the prayer. We need the practice. I think we can do this.
I think you can too, and I think and I believe that America needs to turn back to prayer. I think that we've got so caught up in our lives that we forget to take the time to do that.
Well, I have a South African friend, and we always think about a very famous battle where the Boers came out and there were only 500 men, and they had taken a vow that if God would give them the victory, that they would forever acknowledge it on that day and whatnot. And only 500 men actually fought off 20 to 30,000 Zulus, fierce Zulu warriors. The things that the Zulus reported afterwards, that there were huge white men on horseback shooting at them from the sky, and winged things in the sky that were shooting arrows down at them, and that's what frightened them away. So they had a supernatural deliverance there. And that same God, we say the God of Blood River needs to be here. And this same God is still here today, and we need to call upon him and trust him and believe for the right outcome for your sons. And but I've been praying, Carol, that the infiltrators would be exposed, and I think they are being exposed.
I agree with you. I think they are. I really think they are. And if someone wanted to help with their lawyer expenses, they can go onto our bundyranch.blogspot.com, and there's a link there.
Yes, and I want to tell everyone, don't give to any other organizations during the standoff, after the standoff. People would come up to you and say that they've, shared $1,000 and stuff. Only give to bundyranch.blogspot.com. That is the real PayPal account. That will really go to this situation.
That goes where it is, and I have it all documented. So if people question me, I can tell you where it went. So
awesome.
And we're grateful for that. But we are grateful for the prayers too.
Absolutely. Well, they go together. We can't do this in our. I said to Ammon the last time he was on the show, I said, we're outgunned. They have more technology. They have. They control the media. We have to count on our God at this point. It has to be the Almighty. That's going to be the only thing that's going to make the difference, because we're overwhelmed with the situation. So, Gavin, do you have anything that you'd like to add here? Say to Carol. A question for Carol.
No, I mean, I think I've just been listening and enjoying the break here, and I think that this is great. I hope, and I don't know that Carol knows any more about this than I do, but I hope that they're being treated okay in there. I've been in jail. There's some things, that obviously concern me, and I understand to a degree what's going on. They want you as cut off as possible when you're in a jail. And that said, normally you get to make phone calls, if somebody puts money on your account or if you do collect calls. And I'm getting this sense that, maybe Ammon's real message isn't getting out and it's being crafted a bit by the lawyers, but hopefully we'll get him out soon on bail, because to be honest, I think, aside from God protecting life, these charges are relatively minor. I mean, I don't mean to diminish them, but
I agree with you on that. I agree that they picked the minor one,
right? And I'm surprised, and I think we've seen from the beginning, and I know a lot of us have been praying for this. I think God is confounding them, and it seems like everything they do is to their own detriment and to the revealing of their own corruption. Even though the loss is still great for us, and I guess. That's the price of it, in a way, even for the righteous still pay when a nation is judged because of its own failings and its apathy, and it's allowing tyranny to become the norm. And so we all suffer, and our children all suffer because of that. But I'm looking forward to him getting out and being able to speak directly, because I definitely am not confident right now of what's coming from lawyers.
I am too. Ryan has been able to call his wife. I don't believe Ammon has. So we're looking forward to seeing what happens. And Gavin, I wanted to thank you, because I know you stepped up to the plate And, many hands make light work. And I know that Emma needed your help, and I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Hey, I really appreciate it, and I thank you guys for everything you do. And we'll and do you know the status? I guess I should ask you this: what of all the others that have been arrested? I don't want to forget about them either. Are they all in the same jail, or are they separated, or do we have any information on that? Are they getting help?
Ryan Payne had a shoulder injury, a gunshot wound. Was he?
That was my Ryan.
Oh, that was your Ryan. So they've said Payne, and it wasn't. It's been your Ryan.
It's been my Ryan. And he does have a bullet wound in the shoulder, and the bullet is still in there. They have said that it's better to leave it in there than take it out from wherever it is.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, we're at the end of the show. Carol Bundy, thank you so much. Gavin,
thank you so much, both of you.
All right, love you too, Carol. Talk to you.
Okay, you bet. Bye-bye.